Okay, and see what happens here. So this right here has some drag to it because, like I said, it's got those little teeth in there. And you can see where it's kind of damaged that a little bit. So I'm going to remove this and see if I can't bend those down just a little bit better. Pull the trim ring out. Okay, so I got the control wheel off here, and I'll inspect this to make sure that there's no cracks or anything. And you can see how far in it actually does go. It goes all the way to this little mar line right there. So it goes all the way into there. And I can just take this out and show you there's little teeth in there. You can kind of see them. And I just kind of bent those backwards. You can see where some of them I didn't bend them back far enough. So I'm going to go ahead and try to work on that a little bit. Let's round it off a little bit more. It doesn't feel quite as sharp. Doesn't seem quite so bad. So I'll go ahead and put that back in there and see how that does. And I'll put the handlebar here back on. So just sort of slide this back on in here. Okay, so I got that back in, and then out on the bottom here. And you don't want to tighten it really, really tight because you could break it. So we don't want to do that. Just plug the push to talk button. So this has a push to talk button on this side and another push to talk button on this side. I don't know, I might have to put that bearing back in there just to lift it up off of there a little bit. Okay, so this side actually seems to benefit from having the bearing in there. This side doesn't seem to make much of a difference whether it's in there or not, but this side definitely benefits from having the bearing in there, and boy does that move nice and freely, and I don't have any lubrication on it, so maybe I'll just leave it the way it is. Okay, so when I put this back together, it has this white, very slight, you can see it just wobbles a little bit back and forth. So I took the face of it off to find out what was going on. And so there's this ring right here, and the end of the tube is supposed to butt up against this ring, and there's a little flange in there, and that keeps it stable. And this has been a persistent problem with this side over here. And what looks like happened is that I didn't quite get it all the way up against that ring. So let me, I wonder if this screwdriver is small enough for this. Yep. Okay, so we'll take the ring off here. Okay, so here's the ring, and this is supposed to go inside of this flange and butt all the way up against this surface right here. And what's happening is it's not making it all the way in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little, like a washer of some sort, and just eat up that area right there so that it fits tightly and doesn't allow this to move back and forth like this. You see how that's moving back and forth? Enough to cause stresses on this collar, and pushing and pulling against this is going to eventually cause something to break. So I can't have that. I'm going to have to figure out what to do. So solution one is to make a little insert to go in here, and it doesn't have to be hollow, or it can be all the way across. By the way, this right here is how I wired up the RJ45 for the push to talk buttons up in here. I just cut the wires for the other controls because I don't have a potentiometer with a motor attached to it for manual electric trim, and generally speaking the Copilot side doesn't have manual electric trim. And if I had some inserts that didn't have the buttons on here, I would just take those out and replace them with just flat inserts that didn't have the buttons, because this is totally unnecessary. I just left these circuit boards in there and the buttons so that it doesn't collect dust in there, and it just basically finishes out the way it's supposed to be built. So these just don't do anything. They just don't work. They don't do anything. Whoop. And that's how they come out. They just slide right in there. Just like that. They just sit there, and they're held in by the front piece that has screws that go in all these little holes right here. So I found this washer that fit in that hole pretty good, and it's able to tighten everything down all the way, and it seems to really have stabilized things. It's nice and stable now, so maybe that'll do the trick. So now let's move on to these bearings here for the elevator, and that's right back here. So those have to be loosened up. I put a drop of 3-in-1 oil on each side there, and that takes care of those. These right here are just supposed to be finger tight, and I did this in the 2023 annual, the first 100-hour inspection. Just make sure that's nice and sturdy. So yeah, they don't need to be in there very tight, just tight enough. All right. And one last place that I want to put some oil is on the elevator actuator shackle. So right in here on both sides. Whoops. It's kind of hard to get to. Right in there. Just work that around a little bit. That looks good. So we'll go ahead and put this panel in here. That's all back together. So we'll go over the other side, and I'll do the same thing the other side.